Welcome, friends. My name is Silas Ollegario, and I'm the host of Think Onward, a podcast about books, studies, productivity, and lifestyle. Now, after the intro. Hello, how's everyone doing? It's another Wednesday, another day of the week. You're here with me. Another day for a new episode of Think Onward. I'm so glad you're here listening to me. I'm so glad today we're gonna be back to the topic that got this podcast started, which is books. Yes, we're gonna talk about books. Actually, we're gonna talk about a very specific book. The book I started and finished reading today. I read very fast, and the reason I read very fast because I got very intrigued with the story. Very different story. Some guy that is incredibly famous. However, I have never heard of him before. It was a suggestion from a friend. Shout out to Deborah. And she suggested this book on last Friday. And okay, I got it on Amazon, and okay, maybe I'll read it on this weekend. But my wife's birthday was this week, and we had a whole thing planned, and it was great. We had fun with friends, fun with each other, going out and doing different things. It was a great time, and today things got back on track. Things just went back to normal, and then I started reading this book. But before I continue, let me take a sip of my coffee. Very good coffee. There's this coffee in Brazil I love. It's called Baju. And the aroma on this coffee is just unbelievable. Absolutely great. And I love this chocolate aroma they put it in. It doesn't taste like chocolate, okay? Just in case you're wondering, but the smell is, oh my God, just so great. And one more thing. I have a YouTube channel. I've talked to a friend this weekend, and she said she had no idea I had a YouTube channel. Well, on her, she listens to the podcast and she talks about to me about the episodes and etc. But she doesn't fully understand English yet, so she may have missed some details last episode because I remind you that I have a YouTube channel. So in case you didn't know, now you know. Just go to YouTube, type my name, Silas Ollegario, and you'll find a new video every Saturday. You're also going to find every Wednesday the podcast of the week. I post the podcast there just in case you want a new place to listen to your podcast. Sometimes YouTube is a great opportunity. And we're growing. The community is growing. I started with 2 subscribers. Now I have 40. So that's just great. So if you're listening to me and you didn't know, just go to YouTube and follow me and subscribe to my channel if you can. Okay? But let's go. Let's talk about this author, this book, and you understand why I couldn't stop reading his book. The guy is Franz Kafka. Oh my God, Silas, how did you not? How come you never heard of it? Well, I haven't. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pretend I like to say this kind of stuff. I'm not gonna pretend I'm an expert on books. I'm not gonna pretend everything. Every famous author, I know them. I've read them. No, I have a very specific taste on books, and I don't say specific, but a very demanding taste on books, and it's very difficult for people to. On these novels or novella, which is the story we're going to talk about today. I don't find them all interesting, and if it's interesting, it's just too much for me. But this one is very famous, unbelievable how famous this guy was. And I say was because he died on June 3rd, 1924. Yes, it's old. And Franz Kafka, I'm just reading his page here on Wikipedia. Franz Kafka, born in July 3rd, 1883, died in June 3rd, 1924, was a German-speaking Bohemian novelist and short story writer, widely regarded as one of the major figures of 20th century literature. His work, his work fuses elements of realism and the fantastic. It typically features isolated protagonists facing bizarre or surrealistic predicaments and incomprehensible social bureaucratic powers. It has been interpreted as exploring themes of alienation, existential anxiety, guilt, and absurdity. His best-known work include Die Verwandlung, which is his last name, The Metamorphosis, which is the book we're going to talk about. That's it. So, The Metamorphosis, that's the book I read. That's the book we're going to talk about today. And it's a great book. It's kind of unbelievable. Another sip of my coffee. Wait. Great. I mean, it's unbelievable because in Brazil, when we study literature, we focus maybe 100% on the Brazilian authors, Brazilian novelists, Brazilian guys like Machado de Assis, José de Alencar, Clarice Lispector, and maybe a few Portuguese ones, because in case you didn't know, in Brazil we speak Portuguese, and the Portuguese were the ones who discovered Brazil. And so the Portuguese culture in Brazil is very strong, not just the language, but so many things. But anyway, so in Brazil, when we study literature at school, we don't focus on Shakespeare or Tolkien or these other guys. So our understanding of literature is very limited to Brazil, very limited to maybe Portugal, as, I don't know, Camões and these guys. And after I grew up, became a man, and started buying books for myself, I discovered this entire literature thing, because it's very difficult. It was difficult to me to understand C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, George Martin as literature writers. I understood them as famous writers who wrote famous books. But then understanding more and actually studying these in university, especially 2 terms ago, and I got to study more and actually finally read George Orwell, and these very famous authors who are famous around the world or who were famous. But Kafka wasn't one of them. But as it turns out, I was taking a look at the literature course on my university, and they really study Kafka. So in case you're listening, oh my God, this guy is absurd. He wants to talk about books, but he had no idea who Kafka was. This guy's a joke. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But now I've read it. I'll probably read it again because now I talked to a friend, not the one who had recommended, but the one who saw me reading the book, and he said, look, what do you think about his father? And I think the story talks about his father. And I read the whole thing actually thinking about his sister and how she's the one going through the changes. Because by the title, you can probably tell, Metamorphosis, that the book is about change. But just to sum up of the story, the main character, Gregor, he wakes up and he's changed. He wakes up on his bed, and he's not a human anymore. He's actually an insect. And I think in the name of the name of the book in German is he's a worm, and it's very weird. That's why the author fuses realist things with symbolisms and etc. So this guy who is the provider of his family, he wakes up very early in the morning to go to work because his family, his parents, his full in-debt father, his mother, and his sister, they all depend on his work and depend on the things he do for work. And he's a salesman. and now he cannot go to work because he cannot get out of bed because he's different and he's not a human anymore. I know it's very weird to think, but it makes total sense when you go throughout the story. And in the beginning, his father, his boss, his mom, they are all against him because he's now changed. Because now the way the things work at home have changed. Now he's not the provider anymore. Now everyone has got to cooperate, and do something so they can see ends meet. And his sister is the only one who helps him. His younger sister kind of helps him, and they create a space in his bedroom. And they move furniture around so he can, crawl freely at home, and but always is inside of his bedroom. And all of a sudden, I know I'm not telling the story of the book, but I would like you to understand what happens. All of a sudden, he starts being shut off, and even by his sister, because he doesn't work anymore. He makes no money. They changed the home so they could have people over as a bed and breakfast, and now people are going there, and people don't know of his existence anymore, and he starts causing problems because he's an insect. He's a worm, and people who are there and then see him and they, oh my god, there's no hygiene in this place. I'm not gonna pay. So the family goes even more money problems and etc. And then his sister that we learn to love in the beginning. Oh my god, this sister is so nice. She actually helps him even though he's an insect now. But then she started getting very upset with the fact that it's very demanding taking care of him, and they just stop taking care of him, giving food, because he was an insect. His family thought he would love rotten food, and it was a very bad thing. And let me stop it right there in the story, because people tend to read this book, and that's what my friend did, my friend Peter, and he said, "Oh my God, this relationship between him and his father is very problematic, and we can actually find this kind of relationship between the main character and the father in so many other books of these novellas or novels from this author Kafka." So people actually tend to understand that the whole dynamic of the book, or the whole maybe the main part of the story is the father. And it might seem so easy, but after one semester in college, I'm sorry, one semester in college, studying literature, English literature, and learning how to read between the lines, or how to read even deeper than we think things are, even deeper than we think those things are, like the way they're showing in front of us. I got to think that maybe that is too obvious. Maybe that's not the case. And I read the entire book, very happy about his sister and very happy about the relationship. But as it turns out, by the end of the story, his sister very openly say to their parents, maybe we should get rid of it. And this is a very important part of the story, because it caught my eye at the moment she said it. Oh my God, get rid of it. It's not the brother anymore. It's not part of the family. He doesn't help. He's just a burden. He's disgusting, all this kind of stuff. Maybe we should kill him. Of course, this is too much, and they don't actually kill him, but they do. And he just becomes a stray at home, and he reads in a place at home that he stays there forever, and he eventually dies of starvation. And it's funny because at this moment, at this part of the story, you will think while you're reading, that now, oh my God, he died, I can't believe. No, but actually they're all happy he died. They're all very relieved. Another sip of my coffee. And Just one thing, I interrupt a lot because of the coffee because I hate warm coffee. For me, coffee needs to be very hot. So I like to actually drink coffee very fast before it goes warm. But okay, getting back to the story. And his sister, no, suggests, we'll get rid of it. He dies of starvation. And then they need to get rid of the body. Of course, the decision of getting rid of the body is not like this. They just decide to move to another place, to a smaller apartment, and then in the end of the story, there's this thing that's the reason why I get to think that the metamorphosis is stronger. It's in the physical form. It is always about the main character, Gregor, but at the end of the story, maybe it is definitely about the sister Greta. Because in the end of the story, there's a part, I'm not going to remember exactly how it says it. I'm not going to take my Kindle just to find this. Because I want to say it by memory, because I read it this morning. And it says that their parents was starting to see how a beautiful woman she has become, and that she might be ready for a good marriage. The thing is, there's this whole dynamic of the family, the guy who is the provider, or the person who is the provider. Everybody loves him or likes him because he's the provider. Once he stops being the provider, he's not important anymore. People don't care about him anymore. And that the one who starts being, blooming at home is the sister. And now she's more important. And now she's the one who the parents pay more attention to, or paying attention at all to. And so now there comes the symbolisms, and there are very many. Some, as I said before, and let me start about this. As I said before, most people tend to think because the character of the father is such a bad character. Like he has debts, he doesn't work as we understand, and he depends on his son. He doesn't work because he's sick. He just doesn't work because he's full in debt, and he's not able to provide to his family. And people think that, again, he is talking about his own father, the author. But I think this is very superficial. I think in the end of the story makes very clear that he's actually talking about his sister. And talking to a friend, and he said, look, this friend, Peter, did you get the sense that maybe this book talks a little bit about feminism? And if you look on the feminist side of the story, we can see a woman that is totally dependent on someone, on the father and the brother. Now she is the center of the family, and she's becoming the center of the story, maybe her own story in the future. And which is a great story. And so I have to tell you, Franz Kafka, unbelievable how important this reading was for me. Totally out of the blue. As you know, in the episode 1 of this podcast is called The List. If you haven't, please go there and check it out. On episode 1, I talk about all my readings of the year. Why? Because I make a list. In December of every year, I make a list of the books I'm going to read the next year. I try to create a list with around 50 to 52 books. I never got to 50. Maybe I got once to 50 when I was younger, like 10 years ago. But I never got to 50, but I try. And I have so many excuses why I don't get to 50 books a year. But anyhow, and on the list, I always leave space on the list because I separate into 4 categories of life, which is the productivity, basically the productivity and study books. Soul, which is the Christian, feeling happy, understanding more about God and the Bible books. And I have the literature books like this one, like Shakespeare, and like, this kind of books that I'm going to actually use for college. And I have the fun books. The list of fun books is weird because it's filled with books that I've already read in the past, like The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and Game of Thrones, and this kind of books. And this one was, I didn't expect to be a very literature book, but it turns out I love it. So thank you again to my friend Deborah who suggested this reading. And it is not a big book. It is actually a very easy read if you think about. Now looking back, because when you open a book and you read in the first day and it's a literature book, I mean this kind of stories which is full of symbolism and etc. Is because the reading is easy, and I love this kind of stuff. I don't think we should be just so eager to judge a book because it's, I don't know, it's too easy to read. I don't like this story. Maybe it's not gonna go deep enough. I read Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, and it was probably the worst book I've ever read in my life. I know this is ridiculous because it's one of the most famous books, and the guy was a very important. I don't know what he was. He was a thinker, maybe, and I just don't like it. So now, after reading this book, I really love it. Franz Kafka, and I'll read another story of him this year, but it was a suggestion that fit perfectly, and I'm definitely not gonna forget this story. I'm not gonna forget this whole dynamic he put in the book, in a very old book, because this book is over 100 years old, and it's a great story. Very nice, very important for you who likes literature. And before I wrap this up, this episode, there's another book I would like to talk about, but not today. I'm not gonna talk about the book. I'm just gonna, because in case you know, by my YouTube channel, you know that the last Saturday of the month, the video is about a book. There's a book review of the month. Like, we read a book. I say we because I mean, like, I want to see if the audience is gonna read with me. The book of the month of May was Onward by Howard Schultz, the guy who is the owner, CEO, president, creator of Starbucks. It's a very business book, but it's he talks his story, his life story, along with Starbucks story, with alongside business strategies. So it's a very interesting book, and I'm gonna review the book next Saturday. And then comes the suggestion of reading for the month of June. I know if you're listening, if you're a reader, we read 3 to 4, maybe 5 books a month. But people who are starting this journey of reading, sometimes reading one book a month is a very big sacrifice. So that's why I created this thing on my YouTube channel. And for the month of June, I got this on my hand. It smells good. I love these smell of new books. Oh my God. Oh, perfect. It's called Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. He's a doctor. The name of the book is Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters in the End. This story I've heard, and I've watched an interview with this Dr. Atul Gawande, because this book from 2007, very important book. He talks about dying and talks about how the relationship with doctors and the way they explore the death with patients who are in terminal cases, how doctors should actually react and how they should present the cases, and talk about the relationship with his father who died years ago, and how his father didn't want to die in a hospital, even though his father was also a doctor, but how he didn't want to die in bed, having his family decide for him. He wanted to live, and that's basically what it. And just so you have an idea, this book was in the list of bestseller, New York Times bestseller list, in number 1 for over a year. So they say it's a mandatory reading for every medical student or for every pre-med or people who love people, and that's it. And one of the things people say, it is a masterful book. Chicago Tribune say this book is essential. So Yeah, I'm gonna talk on my video on Saturday, and maybe because I started reading yesterday, just very briefly, just the intro. It is so great. It is just 275 pages, but I'm gonna read tomorrow just to have an idea of chapter one. But I know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna sit down and then finish. So, but no problem. I'll probably read twice this month, just so I can talk about it better on my YouTube channel, and maybe also here on this podcast. So that's the thing. I want to talk about books maybe once or twice a month here, not just about books, because you understand that this podcast is about books, studies, productivity, and lifestyle. And we're gonna have new things for this month of June. New guests. We're gonna have a guest from New Zealand. Guest. As it turns out, I have this friend, Sammy. She lives in Florianopolis, married to another great friend of mine, Tulio. And Tulio's brother, he lives in New Zealand. He's an immigrant, Brazilian immigrant living in New Zealand. So we want to talk about this whole being an immigrant thing and experiencing a very different country on the other side of the globe. So that's it. That's the kind of episodes I want to have, very dynamic, and hopefully you will enjoy, you will continue to enjoy, and you spread the word. Remember, let's keep this community growing, not just on YouTube, but also on my podcast. Let's spread the word, and if you're studying English, if you're trying to be more active while listening stuff and you're understanding more, and sometimes it's better to understand a Brazilian guy who speaks slower than normally Americans or Canadians or British people do. And so I hope I can help you with this, and I hope I can also always bring you something different so you have a new thing to talk about, a new topic, because that's the idea of having a cooperative life. Okay, so have a great week, everyone, and see you on Saturday on my YouTube channel. Bye bye.